Hello and welcome to an update of our Goldilocks experiment. Let's start with our baby bin, or in this case, the smallest pieces of material going into the bin. That's a cocoon. Looks like it might be empty. Well, what I've done here is shredded up some paper and cardboard. So we have 3 large newspapers and 5 pieces of cardboard. I did the same thing for the other 2 bins, except chunks and large pieces. So the reason I did that is because I want to make sure that the bins are not running too moist. I don't care for wet bins, and since I don't have any drainage holes in any of my bins, it's important to keep an eye on things. I see a lot of cocoons that I think have already hatched, if I'm not mistaken. Oh well. So I'm going to work, of course, the paper, the new paper and cardboard into the existing material, even everything out, and let the dry bedding absorb some of the wetness that we have here in the bin, although by most people's standards, this is probably not at all wet. It is just that I sift my material, and therefore if the material is really, really wet, then it's impossible to sift. So I tend not to run my bins wet. So that was easy. They have their new bedding in, and now I can give them a small feeding. Today these guys are going to get 3.5 ounces of carrots. Now these carrots are have been frozen and thawed out. Otherwise they would sit in here forever. If you don't freeze your root vegetables and tubers, oh, they're going to be in there forever breaking down. And now we're going to add our oyster shell, and I'm going to cover this up, keep it all nice and moist in there, and have the worms do their thing. I'm going to cover it just to mark it. See, this is where we fed. Things are looking good in here. Lots of cocoons, lots of babies, and the material is looking beautiful. So let's go over to our medium bin, or our mama bin. And here is our mama bin, our middle bin. I know I said medium. I meant to say middle. And this is where we have the larger chunks of paper and cardboard and food. Same thing, empty. Interesting. So here I did the same thing. I have the same amount of paper and cardboard, just cut up into pieces, and we are going to try and work this material in. It's amazing how much worked over stuff we have in the bins. And of course, these guys also have beautiful cocoons here all over the place. I welcome those who have not seen me start this experiment to go to the playlist and click on the Goldilocks Experiment and see how I start my bins. It is interesting because even though this is one experiment, you can pretty much see that some people shred their paper, cardboard, and the food. Some people like to chop it up in chunks, and some people just throw the whole thing in big pieces. And I'm actually running all three at the same time to see which works better for me. And you'll also be able to see how I start the bins, because I don't have drainage holes, and I use a combination of dry and moist materials, and let it sit before I introduce the worms. So this should be good. Yes, you can get an idea if you're new to vermicomposting. You can get an idea of how to start a bin. It's really not complicated at all. And this is the chunks of carrots, same thing, 3.5 ounces. And we'll give them their oyster shell. And cover this up. And these guys are looking good as well. We're going to mark where we fed and move on to our Papa bin. Surprisingly enough, this is the bin that I am really amazed at. I'm the kind of person that puts all her material through the shredder. I typically don't put large chunks of paper and cardboard into a bin. So this is sort of a first for me. But this bin has a lot of worked over material, even though the pieces went in here large. I mean, it's unrecognizable. So the material also is gone. The material, aside from being composted well, the food is also gone. They did catch up. I'm seeing, again, cocoons, quite a few. So these guys are doing great. What I'm going to do here, this is the bedding that is going in here in large chunks. And I'm going to put the material on top so that it can absorb any excess liquid. It's much harder to work with these large pieces than it is with the finely shredded ones. I can tell you, not a big fan, but I mean, you can see all the cocoons. Sorry, I have sunlight coming through the window. It's interfering with my my camera. Look at all that. Wow. Oh, cocoons, cocoons, cocoons. Very, very nice. Now, although I don't have any standing liquid here whatsoever, you can see that. Still, it's nice to keep that wetness down. So I'll put that at the bottom, and that should be perfect. Then whatever I feed on top will also go to saturate the cardboard pieces in there. Yeah, it's going to take some moving around of this material to figure out how to incorporate all of this in here. These guys are not going to be happy with me. Oh, what can I do? Okay, well, let's just feed these guys leave them alone. These are large carrot pieces. They were baby carrots, so they are whole. And oyster shell. And we're going to cover them up. Hopefully all these shredded pieces of paper and cardboard will start absorbing some of the moisture in here, and it'll all even itself out. I'm really not worried about that, but these guys are also done, and things are looking beautiful in here as well. And we are going to leave them alone and check back on them next week. Thanks for joining me.